Hi, I'm Professor Shanky. Welcome to another tech tutorial. This video we're going to talk a little bit about queries in Microsoft Access. So before we start writing queries, it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the database and the data within it. On larger databases and commercial ones, and hopefully the ones that you create, you will also have what's called an entity relationship diagram, or an ERD. So the ERD is a great way to visually map all of the tables, their fields, and how they relate to each other. In this case, we do not have an ERD, so I'm going to have to go into each table to look at the data that's in there so I can understand what sort of fields I have to work with when I'm creating my queries. So let's start off. I'm just going to double click to open up each of the tables. In the customer table, I see I have an ID field, first name, last name, and a create date. The order table looks like I have an order ID, customer ID, and an order date. Order items, I have an order item ID, an order ID, a product ID, and the products table I have product ID, a name, and a description. All right, pretty simple, not a lot here, so I think I'm good to go. So let's start creating some queries. So to do that, we're going to go up here to the Create tab, and under the Query section we have a wizard or the query design. We're going to go straight to the design, skip the query wizard. Query wizard is a great tool to help you quickly knock out some queries, but I prefer to build them from scratch, and hopefully you will too. So click on Query Design, and the first thing that comes up is a blank query. Just like everything else, it's given a name, query 1, because it's the first query. We're going to change that when we save it. And then I have the show table, and this just shows me all of the available tables, and I also have all the available queries. So I can actually pull data or extract data from tables or queries. So what is a query, and does that really make sense? And it does. Kind of what a query is, it's a filter or a projection of certain fields from a table, and to a database it presents that just like a table. So it's kind of like a virtual table. That's kind of a good way to think of it. So a query is a customized table that doesn't really exist. So it's the data within a query is being pulled every time you run it from the actual tables itself. So there's no data stored in a query. The query is just like a viewpoint or a way of looking at the data in a certain way, and when it gets the results, it presents it like a query, and that allows us to have queries that are based on other queries. You will probably do that quite often as you're building more complex databases. But for now, we don't have any queries built yet, so we only have tables, and I just want to work with the customer table, so we'll just do single table queries to start with. So to add it, I can just double click customer, and you'll see it popped up in the background, and when we're done, I'm just going to hit close. So this is our blank query. Right now, if I try to run it, it won't work because I don't have anything selected. I have to have at least one field selected. We have the special field, which is an asterisk. That means return everything. So if I click on this asterisk and I pull it down here and let go, it's going to drop it. Now you notice it came up here. I have two blank fields in the customer, and it's probably not a good idea, just best practice, to have customer kind of in the middle like that. We want to always work from left to right. Will it run? Absolutely. If I click run here, I'll show you it returns everything, and there's no blank spaces. So let's go back to design view, but I want it over here so we can move our order around. If you come up here right above the name of the field, there's a little gray bar. If we click on that, we'll see we have a down arrow. When I click that, it highlights that column, and when I have that, that means I can select that whole field. I'm going to select it. I'm going to click now and hold down, and you'll see I have this dark bar. And what's that showing you? It's going to put that field to the right of where that dark bar is. And if I want this to be in the very first one, I come over here and you'll see the dark bar is on the far left. I let go, and there I have moved customer over. So what is this star or this asterisk? That means everything. So If you want every field returned, you can just do that. That's a quick and dirty way. It's generally frowned upon because it does return everything. And if you're going to return everything, why are you creating a query? You could just open up a table and filter the data that way. So we don't like that. So if I want to get rid of it, I'm going to highlight this, right click and delete. Also up here in the very top, I have a delete columns. So either one of those, right click and I can cut it out, or I can come up here and delete columns. They both work the same way. So I'm back to my blank query. I don't really care about customer ID. Maybe I'm going to run a report. I just want to see the first and last name. So I'm going to come down here. I'll drop first name and I'll drop last name. And if I run this query, you'll see I should only get, a table that has those. So again, it's not really a table, but this data sheet view, it sure looks like a table, but it's really a query. And I have first names and last names. Pretty cool. So that's one of the features of a query, is I can project out the fields that I want. So jumping back into design view, let's look at actually sorting the data. Now if I come here to the customer last name, and I'm going to make this ascending. So ascending means from lowest to highest, so the A's would come before the B's, etc. So A to Z. Descending goes the opposite. It's from Z to A. So if I click on ascending and I hit run, you can see my last name is now sorted Green, Grumbine, Smith, all the way to Toronto. And go back to design view. I can do the same thing with the first name. So I'm going to change that to not sorted, and the first name, let's make this descending. And I run it. So now I have Jason, Janelle, Jane, Charles, Shanice, Bob, and Belinda. So it goes reverse order. If you have both of these columns with some sort of sort on them, the way that Microsoft Access interprets that, it goes from left to right. So it's going to sort the first names in descending order and then the last names in ascending order. And you really might not get what you're expecting. So I have first names in descending and last names in ascending. But because these are records that are related, it won't switch them up. So Jason Grumbine is still going to be the first. The only place that this would come into effect is if you had two people with the same first name, then their last names would be sorted reverse. Now, I do have two Smiths. So what I can do to show you how this works, let me go ahead and remove the sorting. I'm going to take last name and drag it over here. So now I've changed the order. So it does last name, then first name. And I'm going to just do the last name ascending and run it. So I have Green, Grumbine, Smith, Smith, Snyder, Sunbury, Toronto, right? And then my first name is unsorted. So I have Jane and Bob. Let's say I want to flip that. Let's say I have the last name ascending. I also want the first name ascending. Let's go back to design view. I'm going to change first name to ascending. So remember before it was Smith Jane and then Smith Bob. If I run this now, it's going to be Smith Bob, then Smith Jane, because it's sorted the last name in ascending order, and then the first name in ascending order. So the Smiths are the only one where I have two last names, so that was the only place where you're going to see that it ascended the first name. So that's useful. There's some great uses for that. One time I was developing a system to track overtime, and the way they wanted it to work was they wanted to see the last time somebody took overtime, and then from there sort by the hire date. So that way people with more seniority had the first chance to apply for the overtime. So you can imagine with 1,000 people, there's probably quite a few when the overtime's offered. There might be 30 or 40 people that took the overtime. And we wanted to look at all the people that took the overtime last week, who has the most seniority. So I had to sort by order of descending for last date taken and then ascending for hire date to be able to find out who was eligible for the overtime and make sure that it was evenly distributed amongst the employees. So there are special use cases for the multiple sorts. So I'm going to go back to design view. There's a couple other things we need to talk about. Let's pull down create date. So I want to have all three of these. And I'm going to run this now, just sorted by last name. I have last name, first name, and a create date. Sometimes I just want to filter and look at certain things. So let's say I only want to see customers that were created since May. So I don't care about, let me run this again. I don't care about April or February. I just want these folks here, Smith, Jane, Bob, Charles, and Belinda, who are created after May. So I can do that as well. So down here in my criteria, I can actually put some special commands in here to look at things that are equal to, greater than, less than, between, greater than or equal to. So these are all your standard comparison operators. So I want this to be greater than, and I'm going to use the pound sign to denote that it's a date and not a string, 5/1/2018. And if I run this, it's going to show me everything greater than 5/1/2018. Now, we could have a problem. Let me go back to my design view, because I'm using the greater than sign. So greater than means greater than. So if someone was created on 5/1, it wouldn't be picked up in this. Let me show you that. So if you remember, we had one here of 5/8. So I'll go back to my design view just to show you how that works. If this were 5/8, right, and I hit run, 5/8's not showing up. She's gone because I have greater than. So I can say greater than or equal to with a greater than. There's no space in here, so just greater than, equal, and then the date. And if I run this, you'll see Belinda comes back. So make sure you always double check when you create your filters here, your operators, that you're really getting what you expect to get. So let's say if I only wanted just May, I could do greater than or equal to 5/1 and put the and in there. It doesn't have to be capitalized. I just always capitalize it. Less than 6/1/2018. So greater than 5/1 and less than 6/1. So remember, it's less than 6/1. It's not going to do 6/1. If I did less than or equal to 6/1, it would include 6/1, but because I use just the less than, it's going to filter out and only show me May. So if I hit run, I have just my May customers. Now this does get a little bit small to be writing these in, but I can right click on this, and down here there's a zoom. And if I click zoom, it gives me a little bit bigger area to edit and see exactly what I've written. So that's how I can filter out. So let's say I'm looking at this data once again, and I have last name, first name, and this create date. What if I don't care to see the create date? Maybe, like I said, I'm running a report. I just care about the customer name. I have this little checkbox up here called show. That determines whether or not that field is actually shown in the results. Now, it'll still run the filter. It just won't show it in the actual results. So if I run it when I uncheck show, it'll still filter on those two. It just doesn't show the create date. It only shows me what I was looking to see. So that's a quick overview of how to do some basic filtering using the criteria in Microsoft Access. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos. I'm Professor Shanky, and I'll see you next time.